Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully everybody can hear me clearly. But just by way of introduction, this is my third time attending the Pure user group or the Pure conference. We are our first year with a live implementation of the portal. And I must say, I'm always completely blown away chatting to everybody kind of in the passages and outside as to just how well resourced many of the institutions here are. I hear about these enormous teams that are implementing Pure, some of these massive budgets. Sometimes I hear of people, or universities that are 200-300 years old that have been involved in this journey for a really long time. And that, hopefully you're not expecting something similar from the University of Joburg, because by way of contrast, University of Joburg is celebrating turning 20 next year, which is a big milestone for ourselves, but it kind of pales in comparison to hearing of institutions founded in the 1700s. And so what we're going to share really this morning is something a little bit different, I think, and it's how we stumbled across the Pure portal and how we've used it to solve what is admittedly a very nice problem to have, and basically how we implemented the portal with a non-existent budget. I'll come to that in a moment, in a very short period of time, but in a very, very simple, non-sophisticated manner. So I'm hoping there might be some people in the audience that might be in a similar situation, those that are just starting out, or those that are wondering, if you are not a well-resourced institution, how you might be able to do something similar. So that interesting problem that we have, background to UJ as well, we have a very nice problem in that UJ, as a new institution, we have basically bubbled to the top over the past couple of years in the Southern Africa, South Africa, and even the African region into one of the leading institutions. We are the biggest producer of research outputs. We have the most productive scholars in terms of producing research output. We sit very highly on the THE and the QS awards. And the problem that has arisen out of that is that we have began attracting a lot of attention from a large number of stakeholders. I've listed some of them there. And all of these stakeholders want to know a whole load of things about the University of Johannesburg, and I've listed some of them there. So they want to know, who is this new entity? Who is this new kid on the block? What is the university's research strengths and weaknesses? Who are our experts? How does the University of Johannesburg respond to various national and regional crises? COVID, as it was a few years ago, the rise of AI, the fourth industrial revolution. How are we contributing to the UN SDGs? And internally, how can we solve this problem by highlighting what is the university doing? What are our strengths and weaknesses? Who are our experts? What are the trends in our research output, our quantity, our quality? How are we advertising this in terms of our social media presence, etc.? And so the issue that we found, and I think it is common with many of the other institutions, is we do have this data, but it's not integrated. It's sort of stored in different systems. We have a RIMS or a CRIS, as some people refer to it, but we use that primarily for our national assessment. We have an institutional repository that's very centered on theses and dissertations, some publications, but it's by no means comprehensive. Of course, we have databases like Scopus and Web of Science that we subscribe to, but the issues with those systems is they are all access controlled. Some of them are subscriptions. Some of them need internet or sort of internal authorization to access, and many of those systems are actually not straightforward. You need some kind of specialized skills to be able to dig into those systems, pull out the data, and actually do something meaningful and useful with it. So ironically, we stumbled across Pure as a solution to this. So Pure, and I have to emphasize, this was not a solution that was marketed to us or even recommended to us, but as we tried to find out how to answer those questions, and as we started turning to other more sophisticated institutions to find out how they were responding, we kept finding ourselves being directed to their portals. We didn't know at the time they were Pure portals. They were just these amazing portals where you could find just about everything and anything about research at those institutions. So as we started having a look, we saw how we could potentially use Pure, starting with the portal, because that was our sort of big win, because it was a public-facing module of Pure, but to bring this data together and most importantly, to expose it in a very user-friendly, very easy to digest format for both internal and external stakeholders. And we also wanted a way to go beyond that. We wanted to advertise to those that were interested in UJ and its kind of rise to success. What kind of resources did we have? What kind of facilities did we have? What kind of equipment did we have? What kind of research were we doing? Who were we collaborating with? And what was the impact of that research? And also, we kind of discovered that Pure goes beyond just that as a main feature, but it allows you, because it maps so well to an internal hierarchy of your colleges and faculties and schools and research centers and institutes, you can begin really accessing a very rich data set, not only at an institutional level, but also at an internal entity level. So here kind of began our story on trying to obtain this product. If there are some Elsevier staff, I think, that have literally resigned and left during the journey. It took us so long. But basically, what we tried to do from the research office side, and I'm from the research office, is we had to motivate to our executive that would ultimately be funding and supporting and paying for the project why Pure was going to solve all of these problems. And we approached it incorrectly with the benefit of hindsight. So we decided to take a kind of a ground-up approach. So we felt if we could just sort of convince management that this was the product we needed, we would be good to go, all our problems would be solved. And so we started getting together the motivations, the fact sheets, the product spec sheets, having meetings with management to show them what Pure could do and to convince them. And management were kind of interested enough, but the problem that we found is that management at that level, these are the decision makers that will commit the funds, they didn't have time to sit through these demos that were often quite technical. They weren't interested in integrations and XML and the back-end interface and workflows and approval and statuses and things like that. So that delving into the kind of nitty-gritty of how we would implement Pure so that we could achieve this amazing portal it failed to gain any traction. And what happened, we found, was management simply started delegating further engagements down the line, which was the exact opposite of what we wanted, because now they were talking to people that couldn't make the decisions. And so you had that classic case of kind of preaching to the converted. We would invite Elsevier to come and give us yet another demo. Management would say, sorry, we can't attend that demo, but why don't you go ahead and speak to Elsevier, which was, of course, completely pointless at that stage. So we kind of regrouped and we said, well, how else can we approach this? And so far the initiative was within the research office, a classical research office within an institution. And so we turned to our library, which in comparison to the research office is much bigger. It's very well resourced. They are the custodians of many other products, including Elsevier products like Scopus and Cyvel. And we thought, well, if we get them to take the lead, the library surely will be able to convince management that this is a worthwhile expense and project. And again, with the benefit of hindsight, they just simply did exactly the same thing. The library weren't particularly clued up as to what Pure did, so they came to us and said, well, tell us what is this product that you really want, and how should we go and try and sell this? And so they ended up doing exactly the same thing with, of course, exactly the same result. So finally, as our final attempt, we went to the marketing division, because it's actually the marketing division that stands to gain the most from being able to showcase UJ's research capacity and capability to the rest of the world. They saw Pure, they were extremely excited. We didn't have to do much to get their buy-in, and they just went and did exactly the same thing. They went to management, arranged a whole lot of meetings, got some fact sheets and things together, and kind of upset Blueface at the bottom. We basically decided, and this was really a long process. This had been happening over a period of about 6 or 7 years. We decided that just Pure wasn't going to happen. We knew it was the solution to our problems, but we had kind of failed to sell it, and so we kind of gave up, to be honest. Then fast forward several years, and out of the blue, and we still don't really know how or why this happened, but a very senior member of our executive one day simply contacted the research office with a one-line email saying, we need Pure, make it happen. And of course, at that stage, we didn't ask any questions. We just sort of took that ball that was thrown to us and decided we had better run with this as fast as possible. But we then immediately ran into the problem with limited resources. So South Africa is sitting on the tip of the continent. We have an extremely weak currency, and it is extremely competitive to obtain resources and allocate them to a project like that. So with that go-ahead, we had secured the money to pay the Pure license, starting just with the portal, just with a 1,200 user subscription, but that was it. There was no implementation budget, there were no additional resources allocated. It was simply, you asked for the product, we're going to buy it for you, go ahead and implement it. And the task of implementing it fell on a very small team. You're seeing 50% of it. The other 50% is panicking back in the office, trying to deal with all the crises that are happening. And of course, the role of implementing it had to fall in amongst our existing duties. So we kind of shuffled things around and thought between the two of us, we can kind of allocate 30% of our time roughly to effectively implementing Pure, starting with the portal. And so we began. After speaking to people at other conferences in the previous years, we understood that we needed to integrate various resources. We needed to integrate our HR system, our student system, our institutional repository, our existing CRIS system. So we began the engagement with the IT department at UJ, which we soon realized was extremely understaffed. Very limited number of developers and system integrators. They looked at this and they basically said, well, we can start considering this perhaps for several months down the line, we'll start having a look at it. We also realized that most of their integration capacity had actually been outsourced. It didn't even exist within the department. The problem with that, the outsourced integrators, they had the skills, the technical skills that were necessary, but they didn't understand the education business at all, which was a nightmare. Some of those outsourced developers were not South African. They weren't even English speaking. So we had a language barrier, we had a time barrier, we had a culture barrier. And even when a little bit more money was allocated to buy in or bring in these integration resources, when we advertised a job spec for the kind of person we needed to help us with this integration, we simply got no response, literally no response. Even though South Africa is quite an IT-savvy country with a lot of good IT things going on, people were either too busy or simply not interested enough to engage with us. So we soon realized that all bells and whistles, all singing, all dancing implementation of Pure with everything integrated, everything automated wasn't going to happen. But by now we had committed ourselves. We had told management we were going to implement Pure. We had received the money to implement Pure and they were expecting great things. So sometimes you just have to start. So instead of an automated integration, chatting with our implementation partners at Elsevier, they very reluctantly and cringing at the time, I think, suggested, well, look, there is an alternative. There's this ancient technology called a master list. It's basically an Excel spreadsheet. You can build your hierarchy inside this Excel spreadsheet. You can use that to populate your Pure portal. We had a look at this and we thought, wow, in 2024, this is kind of ridiculous, but we have to show results. And so we decided we would give it a try. And kind of lo and behold, 7 to 8 months later of IT department meetings, developer meetings, integrator meetings that had achieved nothing, within a week or two, we took our organizational hierarchy out of one of our existing CRIS systems, we put it into the master list, sort of massaged it a little bit, and then we began populating that master list with profiles that we knew would gain the best results. So we started searching for impressive research portfolios. So in the South African context, that's our rated researchers. Obviously, we wanted members of the executive to be in because as soon as we announced the portal would be up and running, we knew they would go and search for themselves. So we had to make sure they were there. Directors of centers, our very highly published and cited sort of scholars were there. We used a couple of other tools, which I'm happy to chat about offline, that Elsevier recommended to us to kind of get the look and feel of the portal up to the extent that we would like it. And basically within a matter of weeks, we got the portal up and running. This is a rather old screenshot of it. We've got a 1,200 user license. We're up to about 650 users in it at the moment. And it's a tiny step, but we felt it is a step in the right direction. The portal Everybody at the university is extremely happy with it, and I think it's going to be the launch pad, hopefully, to considering a far more sophisticated and more integrated implementation of some of the other Pure modules to come. So I'm going to leave it there and hand over to my colleague and boss, who will tell you a little bit more about how we are aligning UJ's strategy with some of the information we can get out of Pure.
I come from a place where we don't talk until everybody responds back. Good morning. Thank you so much for staying behind and joining Dale and myself. So yes, we are super excited and really grateful that we're able to get management's backup and support to launch the Pure. And I can say that the feedback that we've been receiving so far has been excellent, from the sector, from colleagues at other universities. I was at a workshop co-hosted by the National Research Foundation and ISCs last week on societal impact. And colleagues were coming to me saying, wow, your Pure website is looking amazing. How much does it cost? We think we should get it for ourselves. So it's really exciting. So I'm not going to take, let me just do that, too much time. So University of Johannesburg is in our last year of the current strategic plan 2025. And this strategic plan really had a mission that was aimed at inspiring the community to transform and serve humanity through innovation and the collective and collaborative pursuit of knowledge. Right, and we also used it to provide a roadmap to achieve our vision. And our vision really has been to be an international university of choice, anchored in Africa and dynamically shaping the future. We've got, it's based on 6 strategic objectives. I won't go through each of the 6, but the one that's most relevant to ourselves and the division that I have the pleasure of heading is strategic objective 1, which is aimed at excellence in research and innovation. And of course, the rest are around teaching and learning and global excellence and stature. So in terms of, apologies for this, we'll just make sure everything shows. In terms of the highlights, so we've achieved quite a lot. As Dale has mentioned, the University of Johannesburg in its current form is only 19 years old. We will turn 20 next year. It was formed in 2005 as a result of a merger of 3 universities. And only one of those universities was what you could classify as a research-intensive university. The other one was a technikon, and another one was really a smaller university. So it really wasn't what, in its form when it started in 2005, you wouldn't really classify it as one of the top or research-intensive university. But in just 19 years, I think we've achieved a success that not many saw coming. We grew very fast. We are now comfortably in the top 5 research-intensive universities in the country. We have, in fact, as you would see here, in terms of where we are ranking #1 in just the 19 years that we've been in existence. So South Africa has got a policy where we get subsidy for research outputs that we produce in certain journals, in books, and chapters in books. I'll be more than happy to chat a bit more about that during one of the breaks. And it's quite a competitive kind of system, as you can imagine. There's 26 public universities in the country. And for the longest time, there were about 3 universities that would be in the number 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But for the past 2 years, the University of Johannesburg just grew to becoming the highest producer of these nationally accredited research output. And I think we're still going to stay at the top for quite a while. We also participate in a lot of the university rankings, as you would see, and the one that really resonates and we really are proud of, we're proud of all of our accomplishments, right? But the one where we were ranked #1 under the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 1 for no poverty, given the context of our country, high unemployment rates, poverty levels, this really was quite a big achievement for us that we are proud of. And we are, of course, one of only 4 South African universities that are ranked in the top 500 in the World Times. Somebody made a joke about the fact that we were ranked #1 in Africa and South Africa in the Times Higher Young University. And this was for universities under 50. And because we are only not even 20, they were saying, well, we will stay on this list for the longest time to come. So we really are proud of these achievements. So what's coming beyond 2025? At the time of submitting the presentation, we were working at finalizing the strategic plan 2035, and it has since been launched. It was launched about a week or two ago. So we now have a new strategic plan. The vision really and the mission is to continue on the great work that we've built on. We want to take this forward. However, this time we've got a very great, or rather a greater emphasis on sustainability. Just like many investors, I think, around the world, that sustainability is becoming an issue. So our vision remains the same. We still want to be an international university of choice, anchored in Africa, but not only in Africa. We also now want to really focus on the global south, and we want to shape a sustainable future. We've got 4 values, right? Impact, innovation, inclusivity, and integrity. How many fingers were those? That was 2. Oh, that was only 2 fingers, okay. I'll make it quick. I'll just run through. So impact is, in fact, so the focus now, even under, so one of the new things for UJ is that we've got a new vice chancellor and principal who came into office last year, and his focus is around societal impact. So you will see here in that graph at the top, the circle is that impact is going to be at the center of everything that we do, teaching and learning, research and innovation, and we want to be very intentional and purposeful around our collaboration, right? We've got 3 themes that, as you would see in the bottom graph, are going to be cross-cutting across these, the core areas that I've mentioned. So societal impact and sustainability, global footprinted partnerships, and technology for the future is going to be part of the 3 core themes that I've just mentioned. So how do we, and this is my last slide, how do we see Pure acting as an agent in advancing our strategic plan? So we think that in terms of the priorities, so the research and innovation core area that we, Dale and myself, are part of driving has got 6 priorities, and I've just listed some of them there that I felt were relevant. And we believe that Pure, in no doubt, will assist us in improving efficiency across these priorities. And then we think that it's going to be a critical tool, particularly around areas of fostering collaboration with industry, co-creating research, and as I indicated, and I was talking to Theo earlier about this, the second last bullet, that we also want to see if we can't use, and we know that we can, we want to use Pure for the submission of the research outputs that I've mentioned to the Department of Education and Training. And if we can do this, I can assure you it's going to make our lives a whole lot easier. And we would also, of course, want to use it in terms of due diligence processes and institutional audits. And yeah, that's all from me. Check us out at pure.uj.ac.za. It's looking much more impressive than the screenshot that we showed in the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So before we go for the break, we can have maybe 2 or 3 maximum questions. Yes.
Hi, Chris Adams from Lancaster University. Congratulations on getting everything off the ground with the limited resources that you had. What's been some of the best academics when launching the portal and the differences that they've seen for themselves when they're going out and about without you guys pointing them where to go?
Yeah, sure. I think that has been the key thing of the portal. The academics absolutely love that Scholar portal and the fact that it is automated. So at UJ, they're used to maintaining a Google Scholar profile, a Scopus profile, an ORC ID, a national submission profile. And we've now brought a lot of that into Pure as a single profile. It's very graphically sort of intensive. They love that collaboration map. They love the fingerprinting. They just love the fact that they don't have to do anything to have this kind of wonderful CV. And so we found what they've done is they link their sort of persistent Pure portal URL to their email address. They're putting it into their CVs, their applications. So it's absolutely, it's been a hit. I'll be honest, that's the only way to put it.
Any more? Yes, please.
I am so impressed in terms of what you've been able to accomplish in 20 years to be #1 in all those categories. What was the driver behind that? How did you do what you've done? I'm just curious.
I think for the most part, it comes from having a willing management. I think that even from the predecessors for the vice chancellors before the current one, Prof. Mpedi, they were always very intentional in saying this is where we want to be, this is where we want to be in terms of productivity and so on. And they did put resources into it. As Dale mentioned, by the time, once we pushed, and then we had the buy-in to say, okay, here's the money for the Pure. They found the money. We didn't have the money for it, but they found it. So I think that having a committed management really helps. And also in terms of the appointment of the profile of the kind of caliber of the people that we've had at the institution. Yeah.
And also, I think just very clearly articulated goals, but in a very simplistic kind of format. They would pick 3 or 4 really high-level kind of key performance indicators, saying we want to be number 1 in the following criteria in a certain amount of time, and then that would be tracked and that would be integrated into everybody's performance agreements. So it was a very carefully thought-through plan. And then for an off the sort of in the passage conversation, how we've used some of Elsevier's other products, especially Cyvel, to ensure that we appoint only those scholars that are going to directly achieve the goals.